So I'm not used to have these debates in English. I hope you show me your sympathy, as maybe even your help in asking questions. But I think it's worth it to probably make a fool of myself, because you are here. Thanks for coming, Sławomir. I give you a few biographical datas, and then we will have a discussion of 10 questions, and after that, of course, you can ask questions. Sławomir Sierakowski is founder of Krytyka Polityczna, I hope I spelled it right, director of the Institute for Advanced Study in Warsaw, and president of the Stanisław Przyszewski Association. They are, as I understood it, all connected somehow. Sławomir is head of the publishing house, chief editor of Krytyka journal that is published 4 times a year, and jointly responsible for over 20 cultural centers and clubs in Poland, Ukraine, Germany, and Russia. Krytyka was founded in 2002. Since then, don't read with me.
I'm checking your pronunciation.
Yeah, okay. Since then, highly influential on Polish and European politics. The Krytyka headquarters is called Brave New World, situated in the capital, and is very important for left discussions and theory building. Since summer, he is visiting fellow in IWM, Institut für die Wissenschaften vom Menschen in Vienna. At the moment, he's doing his PhD on the intellectual biography of Czesław Miłosz, who was awarded with the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2004, whom he quoted with the sentence, "The truth is that I am the typically radical intellectual of the 19th century. I'm interested in the coming of God's kingdom on earth, or at least in the independence of Poland." We will get back to this quote later. Sławomir, you founded Krytyka 12 years ago. The title of the first Krytyka journal was Provocative, Intelligentsia, Helpless or Dead. Could you give us a brief description of the situation at that time and your achievements in the following years? Was it a necessity to do it, or just a good thing to do it, or both, maybe?
Of course, it was a necessity. Actually, it was almost a necessity because 1989, as you all know, was the breakthrough in the Eastern Europe and the collapse of communism, thanks to Polish Pope, of course, and like what was a Polish way, which was at that time called Spanish way to democracy, was through the round table. So a kind of agreement, or like through the discussion, not any uprising, which was more common to us before, but through the process of negotiation. And of course it was good, and I supported, however it is strongly criticized by the mostly by right-wing parties and societies. But of course this had some side effects, and one of the side effects, which is negative from my point of view, is that instead of the real left, we had post-communist party playing this role. And of course, post-communist party was not leftist in any sense. People used to join communist party in the 70s or 80s, not because they were, leftist idealists, but because they wanted, like, more pragmatic reasons. They had to join communist party, and then they try to legitimize themselves in the new democracy, in free Poland, rather supporting the ideas of the other side. So the difference was not really between left and right, but rather right and wrong. So like the hegemonic ideas were mostly, neoliberal attitude in economy, which is not a surprise because 1989 is the time of apogee of neoliberalism. This is the year when Fukuyama publishes his article and then book. So it's like almost everybody believed it, especially on the periphery of capitalism. Not really in the United States or in Western Europe, but like in Eastern Europe, like they were hardcore neoliberals. Like Chicago School was for them soft socialism, okay? And Keynes was like a communist, out of the spectrum, out of any serious discussion. And So, and of course, Poland with a very strong Catholic Church was also very conservative. And, you know, post-communists were just typical conservative Poles, not really like, you know, LGBT movement, which was established only like 10 years ago. 10 years after it, so 15 years ago. And so it was not only a problem with the lacking left, but actually with the democracy. Because if the like leading notion of 1989 in Poland was pluralism, so we cannot say that, you know, right and wrong gives you any pluralism or any choice. So because this left was not really left, people really didn't have a real choice. So so they can, you know, vote for politicians and change politicians, but they couldn't change politics. And you know, and of course, post-communists were strong also because they inherited very strong infrastructure from the Communist Party. Communist Party, as a Catholic Church, was the institution which has its building or committee or something in every village. Okay, only two institutions, like Catholic Church and Communist Party. Significant part of it they had also after 1989, which you know, made them like invincible. You couldn't really easily compete with them. And also like and also like in Poland, you have to remember, as generally in Eastern Europe, something like Intelligentsia is a very serious phenomenon. Something very different than you have in Germany or in Austria or in France. Intelligentsia is written in phonetic way exactly because it's Eastern European. And it means, actually it's a symptom of backward countries. So countries that had no urban class, no like modern class division, they had this group of intelligentsia, usually small, which took a role of like supporters of the rest of the society. Like the main message was like we will be with the people, we will work for the people, we will sacrifice for the people. Okay, and like so it was. Intelligentsia is not about education; it's about attitude. You could be the expelled student of the university after first year and be a part of it, but the professor who would cooperate with regime, Tsarat or whatever, wouldn't be a part of it. So this is this attitude. The last chapter of it was the dissident movement. People like Kuron, Havard, they were the last intelligentsia generation. After 1989, it was announced that this is the end of intelligentsia. We don't need it. We need a capitalism. Capitalism needs middle class. Middle class is something that cannot coexist with any intelligentsia. I mean, we don't want to be any more different country than Western European countries, okay? So actually this was, so the message for people from my generation was, be a small egoist, do your career, earn your money, and like, you know, stick to your private life. It was not really very romantic idea. I mean, and like, especially like living in a culture which is strongly influenced by this attitude. I mean, it was very like we also wanted to have our part of the story, okay? And what was proposed to us was really disappointing. So for these two reasons, the lack of left and this very disappointing message to us to be just a part of middle class, we decided to create our institutions. And usually intelligentsia gathered around the journals, and also were strongly active in culture. There was no real difference between culture and politics, or academia, politics and culture. And this was also one of our strategic aims, to reintegrate these worlds again after 1989, because usually they were together before we get independence, like 1918 or 1989, and after it, those like artists wanted to be free from any social obligations, like the pure art or like the pure aestheticism was like a ruling paradigm. But it's never, I mean, it doesn't work just in Eastern Europe. So still like visual art was very, very important when it came to the struggle with Catholic Church. Because if artists wanted to deal with the question of body or sex, of course the first adversary, the first opponent was a Catholic Church who wanted to persecute artists. So some of them went to prisons, all of them had some problems, you know. So I mean, even if you wouldn't like to be interested in politics, politics was interested in you. So this is why we started with the journal. But of course our aim was not to have a journal. So the name is actually pretty misleading, because the journal is like maybe 1 promille of what we do now. We wanted to have a journal to organize people. When we organized people, we started to be active in the public sphere, writing to newspapers, like, you know, struggling with the opponents in TVs or in radio stations, and then of course reinvesting this symbolic capital into new institutions, like first cultural center in Warsaw, then publishing house, the next cultural centers in Łódź, Gdańsk, which they have their own rooms, they have their own, you know, offices, they have their own team, they have their own, like, you know, small bureaucracy. The headquarters is in Warsaw and in Kiev, because of course we decided also to, when we started to be the strongest organization in Poland, we decided to go east, not west, because west was like least ambitious idea to go there. And for what? Like to do what? So like we decided to go to Ukraine and to Russia. And also when we started to be the strongest in Warsaw, we decided to go into the province, which is much harder. You can organize as many meetings you want, or like or whatever film festivals in capital city, but do it in, you know, Szydłowiec or like in Gniezno, or like in those, you know, shit holes, really. So this was really not easy, but this is what we tried to do, to create a network, okay? And then of course we were like, you know, then we established a daily, which is only in the internet. We did it because we realized that, you know, every serious contents are disappearing from the newspapers. Of course they still are published and they still, like, you know, publish something, but it's not like before, like serious essays, translations, some interesting interviews. It's just vanishing. So we decided to do it, but to do it and be uninfluenced by the market tendencies. So we decided to run it, but through the methodology of third sector, of NGO. So first we did the fundraising, and then we created a daily, which is top 3 daily as for opinion sections, op-eds. So like, of course we don't publish news, it doesn't make sense, because it's like flying in the air, you know, you don't need to really do it. But like, you know, serious text, serious interviews, serious translations, debates, all of which you can find there, and people really like it. Of course, it wouldn't be probably sufficient if we would do it just by, you know, regular market economy. But like this, it is now. It's perfect. I mean, it really works. So institutions were important for us. We didn't want it to be just next, you know, talking heads, or like next left, which is only, you know, caring about is it a pure left or not a pure left, or like, you know, we didn't want it to be like this. We tried to be far from replacing politics by pragmatism, like post-communists. This was one wall. And another wall was this kind of leftist plankton, that they were replacing politics by morality, okay, moralizing who is a real left, who is not a real left. So we were always unreal left, because we didn't really care about you know, about like, you know, we were not fetishists of this notion.
But you're referring as well to the history of dissident movement. So my question is, you wrote an article, I think 2 years ago or so, an open letter to the parties in Poland, where you were saying it's time for a new dissident movement. So my question is, you named your headquarter Brave New World. There must be a reason for it. So is your approach to, I don't know, influencing society or influencing the political discourse of, I don't know, the globalized world as totalitarian, like in Brave New World, and you need a new dissident to take place that doesn't really know what is the outcome of his struggle, but he has to go on and move forward. Is this the concept of being an intellectual, like avant-garde, in comparison to citoyen, for example?
As I said something. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
the brand new world was. I mean, we called the headquarters. Actually, this was it was our second headquarters, which we won through the competition organized by city authorities. And the rule was that we have to organize a club there, like maybe not a restaurant, but like a cafe. And actually, it was the largest cafe in Warsaw. So this is why it was, empty, because all the businesses were like collapsing there one after another, because it was not easy to do it. We were pretty efficient fundraisers, mostly of course in America, and so we knew that we're gonna it's not gonna be profitable in any sense, but and we have to do it. Let's do it, but also we will have to our disposal the really great space with in the best possible place in Warsaw. And so we signed a contract for 3 years. We decided to call it the Brave New World because this was our message, of course, that we don't have a problem anymore living in a 21st century with this Orwellian totalitarianism. However, everything, of course, in Poland was still any real ideas. If you really believed in something, you were risking being accused of either communist or Stalinist or or a fascist. Okay, so actually this was in the same time a defensive system of going through any totalitarian system, but on the other hand, it was pushing people from be really engaged in something. Okay, so it had big advantage, but a big disadvantage also. But what we had instead of it, in communist system or in the old regimes, you had a clear border, what is forbidden, what is not forbidden. This is actually, I mean, it was clear. If you say something, you will be persecuted. If you will not say this, you're not going to be persecuted. Now everybody can say everything, but not everybody will be heard. This is the big difference. So the borders still exist, but they are they are invisible, and of course according to different rules. So you cannot be thrown before your ideas will not. You will not risk with your engagement to find yourself in prison. But you can be thrown to the prison of laugh. So people will laugh at you, that you're and this was what was a problem for feminists in the 90s in Poland, or for homosexuals. Feminist was a joke, no serious politician or a journalist wanted to support this kind of ideas. They were laugh. That was the first reaction, okay? Generally, this is the first reaction to some new ideas, okay? First, they try to make fun of it, okay? And the first people that read avant-garde of new ideas, they always lose. They are the crazy guys, always. And this is what happened to feminists. Actually, we organized Krytyka, and they joined all of us, those movements. And we promised to each other that we will never be marginalized, that we will never allow, the mainstream to marginalize us. This is why we were very careful about institutions, about very efficient organization, very efficient fundraising, that we're going to be strong. We're not going to let them, make fun of us. And we lost this, brave new world, because actually this was 2009 that we established it, 2012 when we lost it. So we have a new headquarters.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry, even better, even larger, but no restaurant, which is good, actually. We were no restaurant people.
It's not the cultural palace.
It was not our like domain, you know. But actually the reason is interesting because we, in the Day of Independence, November 11th, we used to have this. The way how we celebrate in Poland the Day of Independence is that the nationalists are devastating the city. This is the ceremony in Poland, and so everybody were like counting on us that we're gonna do something with this. So we decided that usually they have a march. So we decided, and we registered our march like a month before, exactly on the middle of the march, and we decided to do the concert, to do we called it Colorful Independence. And everything would be great if German Antifa wouldn't come to help us.
To help you.
When people saw, masked guys speaking German on the streets of Warsaw in the Day of Independence, no one could understand it really, and of course they were immediately arrested. But we had a big problem in how to defend this. Of course, they did nothing, but still, it was like really, really tough question for us. Like, and actually, we didn't invite them, but they came, and it was also not easy to explain, that now, we have we're in Schengen, Germans is, they're a free country, they can go wherever they want. And city authorities took this occasion. Before we had only successes, like 10 years of like growing constantly, so of course a lot of people hated us. Right wing couldn't do anything also because we were not post-communists. With post-communists they had an easy thing. They could easily say, well, they are not, like they are the second category citizens and politicians, okay? But with us it was not easy because we were not post-communists. Okay, and also we were more efficient than them. Before, right wing was like ruling in the meta politics. When we established Krytyka, it was totally the opposite. All of those right wing organizations taken together were smaller than Krytyka was. But this time, first time, 2012, it was a good reason to attack us, and all of them immediately really. All the like big newspapers, there was of course a lot of defenders of Krytyka. There was 6 open letters of all the worldwide intellectuals, and like really people started. But city authorities were that time were very conservative, so they were so happy that they didn't need to expel us. They just decided not to extend the contract. But fortunately, already I was a good friend of George Soros,
yeah.
So we couldn't.
We will get back to the financing thing. One time you said to me,
the most frequently asked questions: how do you get your money?
How do you get your money?
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to answer it? But
I
mean, the thing is, one time you said to me, you're not quite sure whom you are more afraid of, the Germans or the Russians, but I was not aware of the fact that you meant the left-wing Germans that you are afraid of. So
come on, we are not afraid of anybody, of course.
But the Independence Day, maybe that's an interesting question. I want to somehow I have the feeling in Austria you have this notion of question of the nationality question in. After the First World War, you had the nation that no one wanted, I'm quoting, and then even the Social Democrats until 1943 still wanted to have a greater German revolution. They didn't want to have a sovereign, autonomous Austrian state. In Poland, you have this long 19th century of struggling for independence, the revolutions, you know it better, 1830, 1848, 1863, and the small interval period of independence, then again the Germans, Soviet control, and then you have 89, 91. Is it still a progressive thing to try to defend Poland as a state or as a nation, and where is the thin line between patriotism and the threat of nationalism at the same time? Is this a topic for your organization, or is it just internationalism that you are referring to?
I don't know if I get your question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
To put it shortly, if I am a Polish patriot or not.
Yeah, that's the question.
Okay, I am.
You are.
Of course. Yes, I am. Well, you know, it would be
so
much...
to get back to the quote I had before, kingdom on earth or independence of Poland?
So when the Catholic newspaper, you know, interviewed me in Poland, I said that when they said, like, what do you want to do? And I said, of course, the kingdom of God on the earth. They were very afraid of it, you know.
Of course they were.
Because we have already independent Poland, you know. So,
but maybe that brings us to your activity in Ukraine. Can you give us a few impressions of, I don't know, why have you moved to Ukraine, and what is your assessment of the situation now at the moment? I've been to Berlin last year. There was a talk from the European writers, and maybe you know Oksana Zabushko. She's a very famous writer, a Ukrainian writer. She said to me, in her perspective, there are three totalitarian regimes in history. It's National Socialism, Communism, and Putinism. And I was wondering about that and wanted to ask you if you confirm with me.
No, come on. I mean, of course, like, I'm not a big friend of Putin. I wouldn't say that I'm trying to do whatever I can, writing, organizing, and fundraising for Ukraine. But I wouldn't, you know, compare Putinism to Nazism, or like even to the Stalinist communism. I mean, it's like a liberal, still authoritarian autocracy. And of course, like with the stupid Russian, you know, need of extending this huge, already existing, you know, place, place on the map. So this is, coming back to your first question, I answered you by the joke, but of course it's a serious question. It would be more serious and more hard if Poland would be like a, you know, country which is already, like, you know, well established, rich and everything. Then probably I would be more interested in other countries. But if it's still like a developing country and there are still a lot of people who are poor or who are victims of inequalities, discrimination and everything, this is helping me to be a patriot, of course. On the other hand, of course, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not Polish. When I was 20, I was, of course, a hardcore cosmopolite, you know, and I was criticizing even the opponents of nationalism, that dealing with nationalism is a nationalist idea, you know. But of course, I don't do it anymore. The Ulrich Beck, whom you maybe know, died. He was my first teacher, and you know, and when I came from Munich, from his university, I tried to cosmopolitize everything in Poland, writing and there was a time of European Constitution, and Poland was of course against it, because, you know,
you did a campaign for it.
Yeah, so which was anti-governmental campaign and anti-mainstream media campaign, which, so like everybody were you know, against us, and of course Poland was against the European Constitution. Why? Because previous treaty, Nice Treaty, gave us the same amount of votes, almost, like Germany had. So we couldn't, like, you know, lose it. And also there was a reference to Christianity, but not to Catholicism, I think, in the preamble, which was also like a sin in Poland. So, for these stupid two reasons, Poland was against the federalization of Europe, which is something that I strongly support. But I cannot, like, you know, it would be childish to think that I was raised in a different culture, in a different language, in a, you know, reading different literature and something. You know, I want it or I don't want it. I'm Pole, and being a Pole, somehow, if I wanted to be honest, like with those people. But of course, you know, in Poland, I always have an impression that half of my nation hates me and the other half doesn't understand me. So it's like, this is like probably the country that I'm most critical to is Poland. This
if they would understand you, they would hate you, or they would like you?
They would love me, of course. So your second question is that sometimes I'm called the Ukrainian nationalist, which I like. I cannot be a Polish nationalist, but I can be Ukrainian nationalist. And yeah, of course, like it's a very broad topic. So, unfortunately, it's very hard to talk to Germans about Ukraine. Somehow they have strange, like, feelings to Russia and to Putin, and it's like, they are buying the Russian propaganda that Ukraine is like a source of nationalism, it's really strange because, in Ukraine, none of the Ukrainian nationalist party entered the government in the last election. And like in France or in Great Britain, two nationalist parties, openly nationalists, won your election. So who has a problem with nationalism? Come on, not Ukraine. Of course, like everywhere, there are nationalists, even fascists, idiots, serial, killers and, pedophiles, and, but it's not that this country is different or those people are different. They're exactly the same like you and me and, and everybody in Europe. Regular Europeans. Of course, they have the stupid oligarchs and they have their problems. We had also our problems in the 90s, Verheugen is a conservative German politician, was a big advocate of Polish accession to EU. He should have a big monument in Warsaw. But what he's talking about Ukraine now, it's horrible. And like Schroeder, the founder of the Gazprom socialism, and all those Putin versteht, this is very problematic. So we of course, I'm trying also to somehow to talk to my German friends, politicians and intellectuals. Some of them we're trying to send to Kiev to check the situation there. And of course, and let's be honest, like Poles, they support Ukraine because they are afraid of Russia. It's not that we are such a good people, and like that because we like, with Ukrainians we had a bloody history. We were killing, one another all the time. But fortunately, after 1989, Polish Intelligentsia, Jerzy Giedroyć is a founder of this idea, decided to stop conflicts with Ukraine, Belarus, and Lithuania, with these nations between Russia and Poland, accept the borders, which meant that we will accept that a big part of Poland is not Polish anymore, with the most beautiful Polish cities like Lwów and Vilna, the most beautiful. Actually, the old Polish literature is from there. Polish soul is there, Polish, from Mickiewicz to Miłosz, all of them are from, Mickiewicz never was in Warsaw, Kraków, Gdańsk, never seen it, Miłosz, Konwicki, Gombrowicz, all those guys. I mean, the landscape of Polish literature, the atmosphere is like it's not a Warsaw, it's not a Kraków even, So it was a big problem for Poles to just accept it, but they accepted it. When Polish foreign minister is writing his program to speak in the parliament, first point is always that there will be no independent Poland without independent Ukraine. This is why Poland is supporting Ukraine, will always support Belarus, will always support Lithuania, and of course, and also we will try to have the best possible relations with Russia, but never on the detriment of Ukraine, Lithuania, or Belarus.
Yeah, I wrote an article from you in the New York Times, I think last summer, where you even called in NATO troops. You said there has to be more military presence in Poland.
Well, because if you are, if you are NATO members, but the rule is somehow that we cannot have NATO soldiers, it's strange. Like, come on, we are second category members or what? And of course, listen, like, if I'm hearing what Steinmeier is saying about Ukraine and Russia, and I know that the NATO soldiers, or you know who will defend Poland when it will come to the war with someone? 2 NATO divisions from Germany. So I would still prefer, you know, the Polish or American divisions, like not because I don't trust Germans. I trust, you know, we have the best possible relations with Germany. I was always for it, and you know, it's not our generation which did it, which did this reconciliation, but of course everybody in Poland has a very good relations with Germany, but I don't think that there is still a reason to preserve this negotiated rule between Russia and NATO that, you know, this part of Europe is free from NATO soldiers if Russia already broke all the other rules of international law. So this is, and it's not about Poland only, it's about Lithuania, it's about Latvia. They have 40% of Russians, okay? Those green people are there already, you know. And so this is more or less. But of course, first I would prefer EU to be more active in Ukraine, because EU was established not to create a welfare or even democracy in Europe. This, of course, EU helped strongly to do it, but EU was established to prevent wars, and war is there. So exactly the raison d'être of EU is I mean, and also like 100 people died under European flags, not in Paris or in Rome or in Vienna, but in Kiev. And if EU will not want even to pay for, you know, to support their independence, it would be really disappointing.
Let me ask you another question concerning the European Union. If one wants to arouse like left politics in the European Union, with which parties or organizations are you dealing? I mean, you have your Krytyka clubs in Kiev and a lot of them in Poland and some in Russia and Germany as well, I think.
In Germany we have a like troupe of people who has, I mean, but we don't have our headquarters and we never planned to do it.
Have any answers how to do left politics in the European Union? I mean, with all the contradictions you have, on the one hand you have to, you know, you're bothering about the border to Russia, on the other hand you're fighting maybe against the border because of Fortress Europe or so on, like you have these left topics that are difficult to discuss in a broader European context. What are you thinking about it? I have no solution or answer to it, but I'm curious.
So you ask me if
what means left politics in the European Union?
Okay, here I don't think that we need to discover again the dynamite. I mean, somehow what is killing actually this project is this renationalization. When Beck died, I realized that he was smart because when he supported this idea of cosmopolitanism, he asked the question, what's the problem? What actually prevents us to help ourselves? Because, like, you know, voting against federalization is like voting against our own interest. Actually, this is a more and more common problem, especially like you know, poor people in USA, they're voting for the guys who will cut taxes for the rich people. This was the case with Bush. In Poland, it's the same. You know, the people who were in a worst economic situation were voting for Kaczynski, and the first thing that Kaczynski did, he cut taxes for the richest stratas of the society. Somehow, like something similar is in EU, when people are like the problem with the politics today is now that put it in the shortest way, we have globalized market but not globalized politics. So if you are a prime minister or a minister of economy or finances of a country which is not China or USA,
Greece, for example.
you cannot really choose your own economic policy. Because if you would like, your choice is very limited. You cannot say like, okay, I'm gonna, invest some more state money for public infrastructure or, whatever, to invest it, to get profits for the society. But first I have to like, extend deficit. Financial markets will yell, So from this point of view, we have to, match in the conglomerates like EU and delegate more and more economic policy to one center. Otherwise, like we are not like we cannot like float with such small countries on this ocean of of economy, and so like any leftist idea, any leftist policy, any leftist program for EU would start with the federalization, I think.
Okay. I have two another questions, and I think there will be more in the audience. First, you have the approach, and you want to side with artists a lot. You have Aktivistäten, who is your artistic director of the Krytyka journal, took place in Venice at the Biennale in 2004, I think, and you yourself took place in Venice with Yael Batan in a video called "And Europe Will Be Stunned." And you, of course, have your cultural clubhouses, your headquarters, where you have the chance to give stage to musicians, writers, theater, performance, and so on. Why is art so important to your organization? Is it just a tool to achieve social change, or is it an own field of struggle for social change as well? What's the topic on that? And the second question is, of course, how do you get your money?
All right. As for the culture, actually, partly I answered this question at the beginning, like saying that in Eastern Europe, culture cannot be just isolated. I mean, and actually, I had an impression that like when we announced that we're gonna like repoliticize or like re-engage art, the artists were like, it seemed like they were waiting on it, and immediately they joined us, and like literature, theater, visual art, even music, avant-garde music, they joined Krytyka, and it was perfect because for many reasons. First of all, we tried because of course immediately we were accused that we want to instrumentalize them, that we want to use them, okay? And actually Żmijewski then reacted on it, gathering some artists and saying, well, now, let me try to use you, okay? Here you have a political message, please, use your artistic methods and, share it with your public. And actually what turned out is that it's not really easy to instrumentalize art. And then all those stupid accusations stopped, because first you had to show me how to do it, and maybe you'll instrumentalize artists. But we always try. Well, the reason is simple, because like me as a sociologist or activist, I can only in a limited way say something or like diagnose the world and also propose something for a social change. So the field is for me limited. Not everything I can say using this sociological discourse or political discourse. A lot of other things that I am able to say can be said by artists with their own methods, sensitivity, so only in the partnership we can really cover the social world. And actually, we are part of the same social world. We use different means, but we play on the same ground. So of course we try to do the partnership always, and partnership means that like the word is so similar like an image or you know, or voice or something, and I think we succeeded because this really, I mean, art in Poland is really engaged and is really left wing. I mean, they are like real fighters and they are very independent from the state. They are well organized. And they can, like, you know, deal with the government, negotiate the budget for the culture. They are hardcore, you know, opponents for those stupid politicians. So it's not easy to deal with them, and it's good. And like, and of course for us it was very, you know, people, especially after 1989, when politics was the worst possible idea, and on the left side, come on, absolutely the most stupid, you know, idea to have. It was doing leftist politics after 60 years of communism, you know, or 50 in Poland, but culture, you know, if you are like political activist, like as I told you, half of the audience hates you, other half doesn't understand you. If you are a writer, everybody loves you, you know. So the cultural capital, you know, that was there was also something that had a very strong power. But of course, first you want to use it. If you really want to use it, if you really know, you know, what to do with this, how to do with this, you know. So I think we needed each other.
The money.
Money, okay. Actually, yes.
Are you still getting money from the state? The artists.
State or
from
United
the
States?
From
United States, yes.
No,
state,
I mean from the Polish state.
We always try to be independent from this. I mean, we are not fetishists of independence. We cannot be independent. Like, really, I don't know actually what it really means. Like, I don't know what today means underground or off ground or something. I don't care about it. If what I believe is left, then I am leftist. If not, I don't give a shit, you know, if it's a left or not. I mean, so I wouldn't die for notions, words or something, you know. I think it's very misleading. And also, like, of course, we did not want to be another organization that, you know, can do nothing because, you know, it's totally unable to create institution or to organize people and something. So of course we tried to be we were pretty efficient fundraisers, which means that, for example, as a leftist organization, we used to be the most efficient in fundraising with the business. Like, you know, organizing like when we organize 100 concerts a year in Warsaw, big telecoms are paying for it because we have the best artists. So like, you know, actually they are pretty eager to do it. Or if we publish Piketty book, it's easy to organize bank who will pay for it, you know, because everybody wants to have Piketty. So like, I wouldn't say that money, you know, lays on the street, but.
And you're publishing a lot, Zizek and so on.
Zizek actually is a real comrade because when he visited us first time, like 10 years ago, he gave us copyrights for all his books for Poland for free. So it was a help. And also, like Sasnal, who is one of the leading European artists, we asked him to illustrate the book of Brzozowski, who is our patron, and the novel called Flames, and it's great. And so he did it, and then he like sold this, you know, this paintings or this sketches actually, and also got really good amount of money. That time it was a big help, you know. And so, but generally we have three sources. One is the small fundraising. One is the publishing house, which is pretty efficient. We publish around 50 books a year, and I think they are. And also with the things like, as I said, with Piketty, of course, not every book is a Piketty book, but like we publish a lot of things like Butler, a lot of things like you know, I mean, all the like contemporary philosophy, sociology, history, and we are pretty open. So it's not that we are like again left who would publish only, you know, Chomsky, Harvey, Chomsky, Harvey, Chomsky, Harvey, you know, nothing. Actually, we don't publish Harvey and Chomsky. Chomsky is the biggest one of the biggest scientists in linguistics, and one of the most predictable guy in the political commentating, which I cannot hear anymore. But of course we publish. So we publish everything that is interesting for us. So we can publish Zizek, but we can also publish Tony Judd. We can also publish Sloterdijk, who is one of the most interesting challenges to the leftist thinking. Sloterdijk, of course. Come on, like the critic of cynical reason is a real problem. Like first you have to answer to this question of Sloterdijk, because what Sloterdijk says is that before people used to gather when something was like wrong in the area of interest, people gathered together trying to overcome it. Today they are competing with one another in this imperfect situation, because this kind of enlightened and cynical reason is like ruling. So this particular perspective is not easy to overcome. Actually, this is why we are calling for the neo-dissidents, because they really knew how to organize such a strong trust among people to overcome this particular
social glue, you call it.
Yeah, how to create a social glue. So actually Sloterdijk was very, very useful to answer this. This is why actually the interest... Karl Marx even said that conservatives are more interesting than liberals because they have a better sensitivity of the social struggles. So, and I agree with this, So we also publish Carl Schmitt. And we are actually not very original, Chantal Mouffe. We published Chantal Mouffe's book, which is a collection of essays dealing with Carl Schmitt ideas. Carl Schmitt is important when you deal with the contemporary, like this kind of like liberal soft politics that actually conflict in politics is bad. This kind of consensual idea of politics, or consensual thinking, which actually makes politics totally, actually, if you want to have pluralism, the pluralism can only be produced by conflict. And actually the best guarantee for pluralism is to have, conflicted ideas, okay? And then you can choose. And in Poland, if there was like the spectrum looked like this, like there is one rational idea, market economy plus procedural democracy, and everything other than that is a populism. What was the choice? Actually, the story why we got significant fund from Soros was that I said that to him, actually in Vienna, in book theater, that open society is a not democratic idea, because that open society is not a democratic idea. If you will tell me who will vote for closed society, then I will tell you that it really gives a choice to the people. But I don't really think that it's a real choice, like closed society. It's like, actually it's the way to exclude you from the rational spectrum. If I'm open society, then if you disagree with me, you're closed society. Do you like it? I would like you to, I would like the conflict between liberals, conservatives, social democrats, but all of them are legitimate. But not like, open society and closed society looks like this kind of axis, not equal, okay? So, and this is actually what happened in Eastern Europe. This open society idea created the elites which are invincible from the point of view of ideas. So when people were like voting for them first time, then second time, the third time, and like somehow always everybody, even the angels, the party of angels, would make a mistake and will lose power. But if the politics will be organized in this way, then closed society eventually will win. And this is what happened. Klaus, Mečiar, Orban, Kaczynski, everywhere, when finally, those elites of transition made a mistake, the opponents, who were not legitimate opponents, but exactly organized this way, won. And then everybody was surprised. So, Soros doesn't like yes men, he likes the critics. So
Okay. No man for the yes man.
So, and I didn't say no,
I guess so. So, questions.
Yes, question. So how you structured, I mean, you say you're big, Krytyka is big, it's become a very big thing. Do you function with members, or, I mean, how you structured? Do you have a hierarchy, or is somebody on top? I mean, you can talk about that at all.
We have a bureaucracy, we have administration in this way. So we don't have like membership, we don't have ID or something. I mean, your membership depends on you. If you do something, then you are. If you don't do something, then you're not. You don't need to be like to go like ID. So like your presence is shown by your engagement. And but of course we have bureaucracy because it's like the most efficient way of. So we hire around 70, sometimes 200 people, which is from 70 to 100. It depends. Like when we had a restaurant, it was more. When we don't have it, it's less. So and they are like shared. There's a section dedicated to publishing house, a section dedicated to the institute. Then the other one, distribution of journals, because we have a journal in Ukraine, in Russia, in Poland. Then there is one which is daily. Daily is a big thing because like we have the editorial board, and of course we have many more cooperators and many more like members, like people who are in Krytyka. But so this apparatus like serves to organize the work of all the.
So you actually have the means to pay wages to 70 to 100 people?
Yeah, but the wages are flat, almost. It actually depends on like if someone is taken from Wrocław to Warsaw, he has to get, or she has to get, actually most of them are women. Like management mostly is done by women. Like, so the hierarchy is simple. Like there is like 7 or 8 or 9, I would have to count the leaders of these sections, and so they organize the work of the section, or like department, or call it whatever you want. And actually I left almost all the powers. I'm not editor-in-chief of Krytyka anymore. No. I'm not editor-in-chief of publishing. Actually you got it from German Wikipedia or something. It's totally not updated, but never mind. And
got it from your Facebook page, but it's.
I'm not on a Facebook, so I don't know what's in the page. Probably, I don't know. So yeah, so yeah, bureaucracy exists, like a circulation of, but like so like my salary, for example, is €7,500 or something. So it's not the. And it's like probably average.
750
euros.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now euro is going down. So.
But I mean, do you and who makes the decisions? I mean, to what's going to be published?
Actually, not anymore because I'm like.
Not you, but who makes them? Just interesting how you organize yourselves.
Oh, okay. Like to be like most open. So this usually when it comes to we have a very strong financial director who is like Dorota. She's the Clint Eastwood in the organization. She's a dirty Harry, and so everybody hates her, of course, and they love me because I don't make any decisions, and I'm okay, But and actually I'm not there anymore. I'm not needed anymore. So and I think I'm getting older, so the next generation is like slowly taking over. Huh?
What's the average age of the generation working?
Actually, we try to be multi-generational. Actually, we don't like this idea of generation. I mean, it makes sense. I know. I tell you why. It makes sense to talk about generations in Poland and in Eastern Europe because politics was also organized around generations. What does it mean? It means that some of the generations, or like to be a political generation, you have to have this common experience, political experience. In history of Poland, it's easy, it's surprising, or like in Poland, actually now in a public life you have two generations: generation of '68, which was generation of the struggle against you know, mostly student strikes, and apart from an anti-Semitic campaign, which expelled the last Jews from Poland, last 20,000 Jews. Most of them are, actually they are everywhere. And they are, of course, Polish nationalists. So they are strongest supporters of Poland. Poland is a strange thing, really. What was I talking about?
Generations.
Generations. Yeah, this is simple. So first is the generation of people like Adam and me. They were like the founding fathers of Free Poland, and they were creating institutions. First media, stock exchange, all those like, you know, they were also creating the rules, also with this idea of open society, of like this kind of thing. And the second generation, which reactively, because the first one is liberal. Before they were left-wing, but after 1999, after the collapse of communism, they are more liberal. So for them, like people like Raymond Aron, Tony Judd, or like you know, so this kind of people are the leaders. Isaiah Berlin. Actually, of course, we publish also them because they're also interesting sometimes. So the opponents of them are people who were born in 60s. They had their common experience in 1981. Martial law, student strikes, and also there was a difference between the Solidarity and the students because they were a bit skeptical to Solidarity. They created so it is called third circulation. Like Polish Samizdat, which was really a state in the state, was huge. Was created by Solidarity elites, but like people born in 60s, they wanted to have their own magazines, something. So and actually almost all of them became in 90s conservatists, even if they didn't somehow felt it really. But because the first were liberals, they like organized themselves around opposite ideas. Left was impossible at that time, so conservatism what was the only thing on the table possible to be taken. And so I wouldn't say that my generation is a real generation, because we didn't have our experience like this. Thank God. However, when I was 20, I was like very angry that there was no uprising, not a war even with Germany, you know, nothing. So, but of course, it's not that bad that we don't have a common experience. I'm not that stupid, of course. But like so in Krytyka, you have many people who are like in their 50s, 60s, 40s. But like I wouldn't lie, like most of us are like probably they're probably younger than me now. Like they're the average, so it's like they are 25, 28. Like the leaders are maybe 31, 32, like this like section managers. But something that, yeah, but so they are probably a bit older.
They're the ones who decide, no? Which project.
Actually, it's, first of all, like I think the practice is that it wouldn't be easy to decide just like without any discussion, consultation. People would be afraid of it because they would be afraid that they will make a mistake and then would be ashamed. So I think so. Like sometimes it makes to make decisions sometimes pretty hard. Not because we have to discuss it, because we want to discuss it. And but sometimes it's. But of course it's shared. Like I don't make this. I mean, it's too big to discuss about everything, and the bureaucracy is huge. In Krytyka, it's really huge. So a lot of it we just trust to each other, you know. So very often I had to like be responsible for the mistakes that I had no influence on it, and we had some, like, you know, with this, like, yeah. So we shared responsibility, but of course, like, you know, when it comes to making hard decisions, we're making those decisions, and sometimes when you have to do it. With like very small, when it comes to like a serious problems like money or something, and it's like a real thing, then of course we have to make a decision.
So I'm still don't get it. You you're saying it's big. I'm sorry.
Come on, come on.
But you said in the beginning that you became, you know, very big, and do you mean you got lots of, I mean, you got a big audience, or that people actually come to your headquarters, or because I can't really.
Okay. I will give you the simple institutional history of Krytyka. 2002, it's a magazine, journal, quarterly. There is nothing like massive in it, like nothing for the massive, no big audience, even no real, not a real group behind it. Okay, usually you think that there is first a group and then the magazine. This time it was rather the opposite. Exactly, we created, or I and like really 1-2 people. We created because there was nothing like a group of people, or nothing like a real like community. Okay?
You were friends.
Actually, this is, if I would have friends like this, like a political friend, I probably wouldn't do anything because I would be happy with this. First we created the journal. And journal was pretty successful because we were, of course, very, you know, I don't know what's the English word for it, but arrogant, let's say. Okay, arrogant in the sense that usually when other magazines were created, people were like asking friends of writing an article. No one read it, you know. Even the families of the people didn't want to read it, you know. So like we had like 500 magazines like that, and we wanted, of course, to have the magazine. So we tried to start from the top, asking the most well-known. This is, for example, so like we were like 20 years old or 21, and we asked like, you know, Beck or to write a text for us. And sometimes, very often, they were so surprised, it was so strange for them. If if the Guardian would come for the next text, they would be most of them would be, you know, it wouldn't be really a big deal to write another text for the, you know, newspaper, international, you know, press. But when, you know, some, you know, crazy students are coming from this, you know, middle of Asia, and Poland still was the terra incognita. So it was easy for us to gather good text for the, you know, big shots, and also in Poland. So first issue, which was called like this, was...
So you went international immediately?
No. We gather international authors, which in Poland was a big deal. And also we started to discuss and, of course, attack we also tried to fight with the stronger, never with the smaller. Even when we were attacked by the smallers, we never answered. We thought that always it's ambitious to deal with the... And of course it was also a pragmatic idea, because if you attack the mainstream, the biggest daily, and the daily answers you, it's the best promotion you can get. And the same with the political parties. We started to be the opponents of the biggest parties. And now Krytyka has a structures larger than most of the parties in Poland. Only 2 parties are larger. And we organize like around 1,000 events only in Poland a year. So Catholic Church is still more efficient, but it's not easy to, you know, be ahead of them in Poland. Yeah, so journal was the instrument to organize first people, but then we created something what we called second journal, writing to newspapers, but not to one, but to many. And the rule was that we sign our text name and Krytyka Polityczna. Usually, what happened to the people is that imagine that there is like a mainstream liberal daily. And usually the discussion looks like there's one crazy guy from the left, crazy guy from the right, and 10 texts which are according to the mainstream line. Okay, so the message is predictable. Okay, we didn't want to be this crazy left guy. Okay, so we decided to write our text in different places, and at the end of the day, they created one pretty strong voice, which was not marginal. Especially after some time. And also because we were not post-communist left, it was something new, people were interested in it, you know. And as I said, we were pretty arrogant, so we were like really struggling, people were answering us, something was going on. And then we created the association. So the legal form of Krytyka is association. We are NGO. but not real NGO in a sense that we are not, like we are somehow based on a different ethos of engagement, or like of intelligentsia, not an NGO engagement, which is, you know, usually three ways are to Krytyka. One is like people influenced by the Polish history, so like by Kuron, Michnik, or like guys like Havel. So like would like to, you know, live this way, do something, or struggle for something. The second way is academic left. So they are more like, you know, desk guys, but they are also important. And the third way is like NGO people. They need it also because they are good managers. They have their skills and, you know, knowledge how to deal with this. And but this mixture can be really efficient. And so 2002 is June, 2005 is association. 2006 we have first headquarters, which is a cultural center. Maybe similar to this, a bit maybe larger. But of course we invite Zizek, we invite, like, you know, Tim Gartonash, we invite Michael Walzer, we invite Michael Sander, we invite like big guys, and they are agreeing somehow. They never, like, someone like Zizek never says no, at least to us. And actually, I just invited him to Vienna. He's gonna come mid-May. 5th May, he's gonna be in the Institute, and 6th of May, he's gonna be in the Freud Museum. And also, someone like Baumann never says no. Baumann will also come here in April. And like, so people are coming, you know, for Zizek, you have always like 1,000 people. He's like a Madonna. So 2006, is headquarters. 2007 we opened publishing house. We tried every year to open a new institution. So 2008, the people who are supporting us in different cities, they are organizing themselves in the network. Most of them are organized the way that they have no headquarters, but they are like a group with a program, and they are like, usually, you know, in those small shitholes, you have one dying cinema or one collapsed, you know, cultural center or something. No one comes there, nothing is going on there. It's obsolete place very often. So usually it's a good trade-off. They're coming with their lively ideas. We're helping them to send someone, a good writer or something. So, and then they get infrastructure. For both sides, it's okay. You know, both sides are happy with this. And so this is how most of them are organized. And 2009, we opened the Brave New World and first center in Gdańsk and in Cieszyn, which is on the border of Czech Republic and Poland. And yeah, so next year we also opened a center in Łódź, which looks similar to this place, maybe like without this wall, let's say. Yeah, and then we create daily at the institute. These are last two. And then we rather develop in the east, not in Poland. It doesn't make sense to develop. I don't think it's possible. I mean.
And what do you actually do in Kiev? I mean, what do you do there?
We have a center. We opened the center, which is really nice. When you will be in Kiev, you have to go there. And we publish a journal. And of course, there is a very active group of people. Now, you know, it's like the proper place to be is Ukraine. If you really want to, like, you know, people are politicized, you know, like the scene is empty in a sense that, like, really, there's real reason to do something.
As you mentioned, to be in Ukraine, about half an hour ago, you told us you think the European Union is doing not enough to support Ukraine. What do you propose? What should we do? Because I mean, I know that Putin is the aggressor in this conflict after annexing the Crimea and fueling the conflict in eastern Ukraine on the one hand. On the other hand, probably you know that that Ukraine is still a corrupt state. So a lot of that money goes down the drain. There are the oligarchs, the stupid oligarchs you've been talking about. There was a report a couple of days ago that the state, the shape of the prisons in the Ukraine is the worst one in Europe, and so it's not on it's not even on the Eastern European level. Eastern Europe in the sense of Poland or Slovakia or Hungary, it's still much below. So they have a long way ahead of them before they enter Europe. They've managed to overcome a corrupt president, and they had a revolution, in fact, but they had more than 20 years to build up their state, and they didn't succeed because the Soviet Union is still in their head. So and we have that conflict in Eastern Ukraine, which is a very, very complex one. It's a very complex story because the Ukrainian government never proposed a federalization of the country. You have many.
Why would they?
Why not? Because they have many people of Russian descent, of Russian culture, so they might.
Descent? Of Russian descent, I think Ukraine has more people of Ukrainian descent in Russia than Russians in Ukraine.
That's true. That's
so
true.
let's propose federalization of Russia. Actually, it's federalized already. So let's propose centralization. Come on, like, if Ukrainians would like to federalize themselves, let them do. But if not, why would you care about it? It's not your business.
Well, so okay, I disagree, but that's another question. What do you propose? What should the European community do? I mean, you've been to Kiev plenty of times, and you think we should support them. I agree totally. I'm also in favor of supporting the Ukraine and helping them to come to Europe. I'm not a friend of the Putin regime, not by any way, not at least. But practically, what should we do more than we're trying to do now as a European Union? Mm-hmm. What's your idea?
I don't mean that you have to send them huge amounts of money and of course help them financially, like you helped Poland. Poland was below the situation of Ukraine in 1990, and of course below the contemporary situation of Ukraine, much more below. And we somehow we're doing pretty well now. So give the chance to Ukrainians. Say there is no reason why they wouldn't do the same. Actually, the capacity of Ukraine is probably even larger than Polish. It's a big nation, great land, and well educated. But okay, so first of all, Russians will never treat sanctions seriously if the situations like this would happen. In the day of the referendum in Crimea, which was the crucial day that time, now you may not remember it, but that time it was really a big first time after the war. We have an Anschluss somewhere in Europe, and this was exactly this day. RWE, the biggest, one of the biggest company in Germany, which is one of the strategic, because it's not about producing M&Ms, it's about producing oil, or it's about producing gas, is selling 20% to one of the biggest oligarchs in Russia. Like 2 days after it, the largest gas provider is signing a contract with Gazprom to build a pipeline for Gazprom to go, to avoid Ukraine. So it's exactly against Ukrainian interests, okay? Mm-hmm. How do you want them to? And of course, the people who are on the list now are dancing in Davos. You know that. The people who are drafted on the list, who supposed never to cross the border of EU or Switzerland or Norwegia or United States or Canada, they are all the time coming back and forth. Mm. And the hosts are foreign ministers, or like the big diplomats. Come on. And so treat yourself seriously first. This is one thing. Then The next thing is that the help for Ukraine, which is like IMF, which is 15 billion. It's okay, it sounds serious, but if you will look what amount of money Poland gets from EU, it's incomparable. When an association agreement was supposed to be signed in November 2013, that time, the help for association agreement, which was like big things, all of it started from it. The help for Ukraine, and the condition was that Ukraine will have open market with EU, which will immediately kill the competitive advantage of Ukraine. The practical outcome of it would be the economic war with Russia, which is not an easy thing. Okay, and the help of EU was $600 million, so just nothing. Okay, it was like inviting someone, like the inviting clochard for the dinner, okay, and let him pay for it. So it's not serious, okay. So of course, I don't expect any war or any soldiers. It's impossible. Okay, I'm a realist. But of course, I expect the bigger pressure. Without the Saudi Arabia, actually Saudi Arabia plays a more important role for Ukraine than EU. But really, like if something is problematic for Russia now, it's the oil prices and not the sanctions. Okay. I think the larger economic pressure, which wouldn't be a big problem for that Poland is a bigger partner for Germany, trade partner than Russia. Poland is higher in the list of the trade. So Russia is not the Russian economy is like actually Russian economy when it comes to the how serious it is. It's like Kenya economy. It's the same third league. It's based totally on resources. Okay. EU controls half of the budget of Russia because 80% of the Russian budget is from oil and gas, and EU buys half of it. So I don't even think that you will have to stop buying gas or something. But like the serious threat or the serious joint politics with USA, which is now the largest gas producer and the largest also oil producer in the world, and only it's a question of time and infrastructure to redirect the gas provider for EU. It would be only this would be like, but the real serious threat that you will do it, then it would make it would play a role. But other than that, I think that's still like I mean, I'm sure that USA will work differently with this, but USA has no economic relations with Russia. Just no. It's like a vestigial. It's like a symbolic thing. Less than 1% of American trade is with Russia. So I'm sure that they would deal with this differently. I think there's still too much like understanding for Russians. What they are doing there is really horrible. A lot of people are dying. Crimea is, annexed already. Those two regions are, I don't know if in your TV it is shown when those fighters in the airport, yesterday they gave up. Yeah. And the Russian soldiers or the separatists dragged them through the city, like torturing them or beating them. Like, come on, it's really even. Sorry, but I cannot imagine that that you can kiss with Putin like Schroeder is kissing, and at the same time watching this what's going on there. I don't think that Russia should be treated as a regular partner in diplomatic relations.
I think the problem is that.
And I'm not a Russophobe. My organization is there. I love Russians. They are my bros and my sisters, really. But I'm not, I'm not gonna be Putin verstehen, okay? Or I'm not gonna say let's have a pragmatic relations with Russia, okay? Because it means that like another appeasement, Actually, it's like invitations, for Russians to do more.
you really have the impression this is the attitude in Germany? Because I had quite the opposite, especially here in Austria when I talk to people. Most of the people, except for those who come from Russia themselves, and they differ in their opinions. Some are in favor of the immigrants who live here, come from Russia, the Ukraine. Some are in favor of Russia, some are in favor of the Ukraine. That differs, but if you talk with the people who have no connections, no personal connections to the regions, most of them are in support of the Ukraine, I have the impression. Even the politicians, they say, Kiev has created a new Europe, a new European identity. I don't remember which Austrian politicians told, so conservative ones. Well, I'm very grateful to Putin because he managed that we are now more joined in our European identity, because people in Kiev went to the Maidan and were in favor with yes, European Union shields and stickers and so on. So there is probably a kind of reconciliation policy, and when politicians meet, but I don't think that most of the educated people or the majority is kind of understanding Putin. You really have that impression? Maybe you have more information than I do.
50% of Germans, according to public polls, says that accepts the fact that the Crimea is in Russia, but thinks about it that like it's done, okay, and also like Die Linke is just a regular pro-Putinist party. I mean, they're just crazy. I mean, really. SPD, I mean, is saying like Angela Merkel is saying something in the 1 o'clock p.m. and Steinmeier is saying exactly the opposite next hour. Okay, no one will treat it seriously. And of course, what happens also is that all those right-wing parties, the extreme right, is organized, supporting Putin. It's like I don't know, but like Front National, or this British, nationalists. They are, that they are openly supporting Putin.
The extremists, yes. Front National.
Having 30% of, political scene.
Yes, it's another story, but you're right, of course.
And so it's a kind of a new Comintern.
The Freedom Party in Austria is supported.
The Freedom Party.
They were ruling this country, I think, 10 years ago.
They're crazy, the Freedom Party. Okay.
Yeah, but it's like probably it influences the political scene, of course, and like it creates the spectrum. If you can be openly, if like fascist and anti-fascist are discussing, and you will tell me that, or people will understood from it that the truth is in the middle, I'm not happy with the situation. This is exactly what is happening in Europe, you were talking like, well, in Germany, I talked to the people and most of them are for Ukraine. Fantastic, you don't want me to be happy that they are not for Russian aggression. Or not, or I should be satisfied with this. I think it's pretty obvious that we oppose it.
I'm not satisfied with this at all. I just wanted to hear your opinion. I told you that was my experience. Maybe your experience was a different one. What is your
no, the thing is that
problem? That's what I wanted to hear.
Now we did not achieve nothing as for changing Russian policy. Mm-hmm. Sanctions didn't work this way, and we already discussed how to get back from it. Okay, so it's also
yes, because we have so many countries in the European Union, like for instance Bulgaria, are much more dependent on the Russian gas and oil, and they're not interested in that. They're traditionally very Russian linked and friendly to Russia. Countries like Bulgaria. and they can block many processes because they're part of the.
Actually, you know,
we're not a state, we're a union. So before we agree, we make a compromise. You told us that with the constitution, that was a good example.
Oh, come on! But actually, it was Bulgarians who stopped the building the South Stream, and they paid the price for it. Actually,
Yeah.
of course, that, you know, for you know. Now, you know, Russia, of course, well, you know, Russia liberated Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they are always liberating someone. We are also liberated by Russia 10 times. You know, now they are liberating Ukraine, but Bulgaria, true, like for them, like Turkey is the aggressor. So of course they have this kind. They have a common religion. And they 100% of the economy is dependent on the Russian gas. That's true, but with this, they are not the strongest opponent of the sanctions. They are not even. They are maybe in the middle. Much stronger opponent is Italy, for example. Much stronger opponent is unfortunately Orban, who made his economy totally dependent by the contract about the Kraftwerks, atomic plants in Hungary, and he's talking mostly about pragmatic, policy towards Putin. I understand it, of course. EU is divided. Even Eastern Europe is divided. Poles want something different than Hungarians. Czechs never want the same as Poles. Slovakians have their own problems and something, but. EU doesn't have even a common, I'm not talking about common, defense policy. However, it's surprising, that we want to be, on the geopolitical map, EU just doesn't exist. No, not only no army, I'm not the military guy, but common energetic policy would be needed, I think.
We have battle groups, but what we manage is to send refugees away, and there Europe often works. The European countries work together. It's a shame, of course.
Okay, let's admit it. I don't have an easy answer. I feel it. I don't have an easy answer how to do with Ukraine. I'm pretty sure that like when I look what's going on in Davos, for example, and I see how easy it is to buy Western politicians and businessmen. You know what they do, what Russians do? The big banks are buying the biggest bars, the biggest hotels. Like, first they stole it from their own society because they are not so efficient. So it's not that they are so good business. It's not that Abramovich is the most intelligent businessman, in Europe. So it's a dirty money, For this dirty money, they are buying all those goods, and it's so easy to get this attention of politicians, of businessmen, and of course people will tell you, come on, that's the life, that's the be a realist and something, and this kind of actually this is why I treat Solotaire seriously, because this kind of basic cynicism, this kind of common cynicism is something that it's killing the public sphere. When I go to media in Poland, and I have to discuss the situation in Polish politics or something, and I see that all of the participants are accepting the rules which are totally devastated, which are devastating the political discussion, political argument, everything. And if you would say something that, come on, but don't you see that, they are lying, or they are... Ruling party, before election in Poland, is transferring all the stars of the opponent parties. If someone is growing in the other party, they are stealing him, okay, and making this party unable to compete, okay, and it's like a it's like a Real Madrid, the ruling party in Poland, okay. So how can you, and this is why they are still ruling, okay, and they will rule forever in Poland, and when you say, hey, come on, do you transfer now? It's something which is like a regular word from the political dictionary in Poland, And if you don't want to agree with this, you say, hey, come on, but don't you see that it's like not really okay? Like, you know, it's like killing our, you know, politics. It's making our people more and more distanced, skeptical to it. Don't you see that the turnout is going down? People who just hate politicians, you know. No one serious wants to join it. You know, the third biggest party now decided they asked a model, nice girl, but like totally like not in the role of politician, to be a candidate running for presidency, only to do the show, because, you know, this way they will get 10-15% probably, and that's it. That's enough for them, you know, to get to another parliament, because it's about parliament, not about presidency. And like this, so if you will try to stop them and saying like, okay, do you think that it's like maybe it's something stupid in it or wrong or something? No. People are thinking now who will kill who, somehow accepting it, and it's this kind of like cynicism which is in the air. This is something which is the first obstacle to for the social change. And I think that what is in the air, it's this kind of understanding or treating Russia still much higher than it deserves. I think so. I mean, we're treating it as almost democratic, regular country. We don't want to expel them from HWO, for example. However, it's breaking all the rules. There are 10 reasons for it should be done, but no one does it because like they are dealing with Russians, and there are like so many other things that you can really do, and you don't do it.
It's a nuclear power. This is one of the reasons too.
Maybe we have.
Can we have more people talking?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I want to get back to the basic question. I find it important. What is left today? And I don't think that I understood completely what your what your conception and practice of being left means. Because you said, for example, you spoke about social change. Okay, so maybe you don't want to be a leftist, but you want to effect social change.
If I don't want to be a leftist?
I'm not sure. I wasn't here in the very first beginning of the discussion, but I have the, let me finish my question. I would like to have a more precise understanding of your conception of left today. Of course, it's not the same 89 or before or even shortly thereafter. And the second, which I found puzzling, you said the linke, which I consider a very important member of the European left, and it's very much in support of Alexis Tsipras, who will in 48 hours be the first radical left president of the European Union, of the country in the European Union, which I also want to know what you think about that. Because the left is that kind of left, a new, I would say a new radical, a new communist left, in Europe. Europe-wide is on the rise, not just in Greece, in Spain, in Portugal, in many other countries. The linke is a little weird because it's divided, it's split in many factions, it's not as strong as it could be, but it's part of this European left grouping that's going to be very important in the next 10, 20 years. I hope so. What do you think about it?
As my leftism, according to most of the definitions, I think I'm leftist, but I don't care too much about how do you call me. My name is Sławomir, but it's too hard to pronounce. You can call me Steven.
Sławomir is
it's
not
okay.
so hard.
That's fine, but for some people it's hard. But so like my problem with the linke is that they are somehow they think that leftism means also includes pro-Russianism. Yeah, they are. So listen to them. Die Linke is one of the most pro-Putinist parties in Europe. This I cannot accept because I don't think it's like democratic or left-wing in any way. the main ideologist of Putin is an open fascist with the neo-Nazi past, Dugin. Okay, most of the people sitting in Kremlin have nothing to do with any leftist, just nothing. Okay, so I don't see any good reason for the left-wing party to support Putin. Okay, this is my problem with the linken.
And the European left?
Unfortunately, Podemos and Syriza are similar from this point of view. I don't understand it. What we will do now, I'm trying to, I'm not trying because we didn't start it, but we will invite the leaders of Podemos and Syriza to Kiev because they are talking that they are fascists there. We will ask them to show us those fascists and like to meet them. And I hope we will do it. So like to let them see what is Ukraine because just they don't know. So we think this is the reason why they are saying such a stupid thing. But so this is one thing. Your question was about what I think.
Your conception of what is
remind me. Okay, and you also asked because the second question is shorter about the Syriza possible success. I think they will have exactly the problem that I told you. Well, and already Syriza started to lose the speed when it comes to the program, because before they were saying that we're not gonna pay our debts, and they are saying that of course they will. They said that they may, that may go out from the Eurozone. A few days ago they said we will of course not do it, and probably this is the way how will they deal with their program. And I'm not accusing them. I'm not surprised. I cannot, that for left, the choice is easy today. Simple, not easy, not the hardest, but it's very simple. Either you lose or you become a cynic. It's like for Zapatero. Zapatero was a good leftist guy. But his choice was like either you're gonna lose everything, first in public polls, then in election, or you will change your program to more pragmatic, as they say. I think the Syriza is more like on the left side. So it only means that the compromise will be bigger. This is my fear, and this is why I believe more in like European left than local left. I don't think that the local left has any chance to change something, because countries are not sovereign economically anymore. So this is, and left is impossible without the state or without the instrument of changing. Actually, for left, differently than conservatism, has a much harder job to do. Conservatism are like playing on status quo. They are trying to stop. 100 years ago, the word democracy was a synonym of left. Okay? 200 years ago, the word freedom or free, to be free, not to be served, okay, was leftist, radical idea. Okay? Now all of it is common, and I think this is the role of the left. Actually, we don't even need to win elections. We should, what we wanted to do, what our aim was, because the most frequent question was for us, why don't we join the party politics? Why don't we create a party? And our aim was to legitimize the left-wing discourse, left-wing symbols, left-wing, point of view on taxes, economic policy, cultural policy, all of it. We published 12 series of books, but one is like small guides. And we published, some of them are like 800 pages, but like small, they are like pocket books. But we call it Guides of Political Critic because, and it might be about almost everything. So it can be a guide on taxes or healthcare system or Zizek or Lacan, or coal, for example, or like everything. The series has like 60, maybe 70 volumes. Or about Żmijewski, for example, and we do it trying to observe and describe the phenomenon that is interesting for us from our point of view. But actually, this was what was to be done in Poland at that time, because no one could like understand. The left was either Gierek or Stalin. This was the only associations, or Palace of Culture in Warsaw. This was the thing that people understood, or they were familiar. They didn't get used to have different associations. And I think, and from this point of view, we succeeded. Like most of the people understand and treat seriously things like feminism. Much harder was with economy. Also,
With what?
economy.
Yeah.
Also because Poland had no recession. In other countries, recession created the more free discussions about it. In Poland, it was like, you know, we were like free riders because we had no euro, we had Germans. Germans stimulated the economy by two big stimulus packages, so we didn't need to do it because our export saved our economy. Most export goes to Germany. So, but of course people thought that it's because we, you know, have our correct neoliberal policy. This is why we are, you know, only in Europe without recession. But even this is changing now, so it's getting more and more pluralistic. But what I understand by leftism, I always understood by leftism a kind of a struggle with alienation, to put it to the correct vocabulary, which means that for me it's a philosophy of freedom actually, not really equality, or rather equality of freedom, to be equal in our free choices of religion, of gender, or of everything, like what you can. So like, it's like struggling with the institutions that might be oppressive to you. Locally it means different things. This is why I'm somehow emphasizing that I'm leftist, that I'm part of Eastern Europe, that it's something different. Because it's like, I don't believe in abstract ideas and abstract lefts, or not everything is somehow based on the tradition, like it or not, but it's like this. Left means something different in Poland than something than in Austria, okay? Dealing with different problems. But the general idea, I think, is exactly like this. I mean, to make people able to rule their own life scenarios. This is the shortest definition of left. To make people able
To enable people to live.
choose their own life scenarios, which can mean very different things. For example, in Poland, most of the people who are like 50 plus have no enough money to be the citizens even. In a sense that like or it was a problem in 90s. To be a part of the society, you need to like meet your friend in a cafe or something. Like you need a certain economic minimum to become a citizen, to become a part of the society. Also to pay the lawyer, so not to be totally dependent on, you know, anybody who can, you know, sue you, and so on.
So it's going down now because here it's going down.
I mean, like, well, in Poland, actually, the retired people are not in the worst situation. Probably the new generation will be, you know, it's totally the opposite, like in '68. In '68, the younger people wanted to be totally different than, you know, and now they are dreaming about the life of their parents, you know, at least in Western Europe.
Should we go on that way or make ourselves more comfortable, make a cut here, having snacks or drinks or so? I think that's the better thing. So thank you very much for coming.
She has one more question.